Hello, today we're going to talk about percents. Representing percents. What percent of people prefer bright white toothpaste? A percent is a rate in which the first term is compared to 100. The percent is the number of hundredths that represents the part of a whole. Modeling this with math, you can use decimal grids, number lines, or equivalent fractions can be used to represent percents. In example number one way is to use a grid. So in this particular grid, there are 100 white squares. The amount of squares that are colored in are blue. There are 70 blue squares. So you would write 70 over 100. Or they show you there are 7 blue rows with 10 in each row. This is equivalent to 70%. Another way you can do this is using a number line. 7 out of 10 is equivalent to 70 out of 100. So if you line these up and you count by 10s on the bottom number line and you count by 1s on the top number line, you notice that 70 and 7 line up and 10 and 100 line up. Therefore, the percent would be 70%. And last, you can use an equivalent fraction to find the percent. Multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 10 to get the fraction over 100. And once you have the fraction over 100, your percent will be the number that is on top. 70% of people prefer bright white toothpaste. So let's look at the next example. The next example says, Jane won 9 out of 10 video games she played. What percent of video games did Jane win? So on this bottom one, you can do it any of the ways that we showed above. The easiest way I find is to get the bottom number to be 100. So if I multiply both the top and the bottom by 10, I'll get my denominator is 100 and 9 times 10 is 90. Therefore, the percent would be 90%. Jane wins 90% of the video games. In example number 2 here, it says examine percents and wholes. Each line segment represents 100%, but the segments are not the same length. Use equivalent rates to find the percent or part of each line segment that point A and B represent. So, looking at line segment A or point A, it is at 1/2 of the line segment. So, you would write 1/2 and you would multiply both the top and the bottom by 50, because what you want to make sure is that you are getting 100 on the bottom. So if you multiply both by 50, you would get 50 over 100, where point A would be at 50%. Now, point B is at 1/4. So you have to look at this and you have to think, okay, how many intervals do I have from 0 to 100? 1, 2, 3, 4. That tells you the denominator is going to be 4, and B is at the first mark, so it's going to be 1/4. Again, then you want to think to yourself, well, what can you multiply 4 by to get to 100? Well, 4 times 25 is 100, so you have to multiply both the top and the bottom by 25. 1/4 is 25%. Which point represents 50% on the second line segment? Well, hopefully you know 50% would be halfway in the middle. Therefore, C would represent 50% on the second line segment. Alrighty. And the last example says use percents. You can use percents in mental math to find the length of line segments. If line segment CD represents 10%, what is the length of the line segment that is 100%? So if this represents 10%, 4 inches is 10%, and you want to see how long the total line is going to be, well, you simply would multiply 10 times 10%, because you know 10 times 10 would be 100%. So then if you multiplied the 4 inches by 10, you would come up with the line is 40 inches long. If line segment EF represents 200%, what is the length of a line segment that is 100%? Well, you have to think to yourself, how do you go from 200% to 100%? Well, 100% would be half of 200. So you would have to take your 6 and divide it by 2. Why would you divide it by 2? Simply because you have to take 200 and cut it in half to get to 100. So last, if line CD represents 100%, what is the length of the line segment that is 25%? So now they're saying, okay, line CD that is 100%. Okay, so this is 100%. And we know that it's 4 inches long. How would we figure out 25%? Well, 25%, think about how many quarters make up a dollar. 4 quarters make up a dollar. So you would want to divide this, and you would know that 25% of 4 would be right here. You would be at a quarter, so it would be 1 inch. That concludes our lesson.